Hello, everybody. Welcome to Oil Painting, Learning from the Masters. My name is Jason Meyer, and with me tonight, as always, Miss Cindy Meyer, taking care of everything behind the scenes. So tonight's the last night we're together with this series of episodes. This is the 14th. We've been going about 3 months now, and we've covered a ton of material. So what I've done is I've put a quick little review together, and then I took, I think, 3 new ones and one you've already seen, painting of students, and I've worked them into the program, the things we've done to see how it can affect your work. We should have some time left at the end, and my plan is then to go over kind of live with you. I've got a reference here, and we'll go over there and how we apply this right from the start and talk about some of those things before we sign off from now. So thank you everybody for joining us. We appreciate that. I also wanted to say we've gotten some beautiful cards and donations and books and everything. So thanks for everybody sending stuff in. It really means a lot to us, so we do appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So without further ado, why don't we jump into the review? All the videos tonight are pretty short. You may want to watch this again, or on the student review, we might even play them more than once after we talk about them. All right, so let's get going. About 3 months ago, we began this journey with a question. What if we approached painting through the lens of visual power? Meaning that we make visual power our intent. That visual power is what we look for, and visual power is what we work to create. We looked to some of the great painters to see how they used visual power to create magnificent works of art. Rembrandt himself showed us how to keep visual power off the edge to create form. We saw how effective and, more importantly, how controllable visual power is using the right small crew. We investigated how to use color for visual power, and even how to orchestrate visual power. We witnessed the magnifying effect of layering in oil paint. We learned how linear and atmospheric perspective help us portray distance in our work. We talked about how composition, fine art, resolve into good spacing. That we can practice and produce good spaces with very simple shapes. Finally, we went over how making sure your masses have a horizontal or vertical gesture, and then alternating the direction you work on each mass from layer to layer can make a painting come to life with just a few layers. Did you guys remember all that? We have covered quite a bit. And I think one of the things that you're going to see going forward and looking on the students' work is simplicity is power. But it turns out simple is difficult. It's difficult to make things simple and to let go. But that is, in fact, the secret to good painting, to good art. It is the simplicity of it at the center. Now, when the viewer sees it, that simplicity is disguised very well, that usually somebody without any training can't find the structure underneath it. Okay, so one of the first things that we talked about was getting the viewer inside the painting, inside the frame, towards the middle or somewhere off the edge of the canvas. Right, so we've got some examples of students' work. We're going to show this in just a second. But we went one step further than that, if you guys will recall. Not only do we not want things on the edge of the canvas, the visual power per se, but if we want form, we want the visual power of the thing to be off the edge of the thing and inside the thing. Okay, so let's look at, I took a couple of paintings here, and I've rearranged some of the big pieces here just so that we can see that the power really is in the simplicity. And if we can slow down and just insist that the power be there before we put any detail in at all, you guys will go a long way to becoming much, much stronger paintings. Painters. You won't be paintings, you'll be painters. All right, so did you guys catch that? Told you it was short. That was only about 30 seconds, so I may run it again here in a second. But pay attention. All I did was readjust some big pieces, right? Because what we're going to remember, and we're going to see on the last work I work on today, that a bunch of individual beautiful colors doesn't necessarily make a complete work. But being conscious of what's stronger and weaker, and in fact setting up your painting or setting up your crew so that it is all about strong and weak, so that you can intentionally play those off of one another. Then your individuality as an artist comes with how strong, how weak with that measure. Okay? So let's take a look at that one more time before we go on to another one. Okay, so there's some visual power at work. What I've tried to do is I wanted to look at the visual power that was there in the work. Take a look at the crew that's being used. And then also spacing, because you remember good composition is good spacing. Now, on this next one, I didn't get to all of those, but on the last one, I believe I did. So let's go ahead and look at our next work here, and we'll talk about it on the other side. In this painting, we have a few things going on, and some of the most important things are the same size. So let's resize, especially the trees. We can do that with the sky. Then we'll simplify the water, and then play down the orange sand, as well as simplify the trees. And then if we looked at the spacing, the composition, I might move that cowboy up to there. Then we can have that light in that grass lit, leading to the cowboy and coming off of the cowboy. Okay, did you guys understand that last part there? I didn't get to execute it, but I'd move that cowboy up to that top little cross there on that third. The front of his hat that's getting light, I would put that right in front of that tree and the shadow side of the tree. Because then we'd have the shadow side of the tree holding that lit up part of the hat and the horse, and the horse could come, that white of the horse would come forward, would have more visual power if it was next to the shadow of the tree. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I think I will. That was so short. We'll go ahead and see that again one more time. Again, sometimes it's kind of shocking to take this in, but it's all based on very, very simple things, right? We want different sizes. We want visual power. We don't want everything to have visual power. So let's see if we can see that one more time. In this painting, we have a few things going on. And some of the most important things are the same size. So let's resize, especially the trees. We can do that with the sky. Then we'll simplify the water and then play down the orange sand, as well as simplify the trees. And then if we looked at the spacing, the composition, I might move that cowboy up to there. Then we can have that light in that grass lit, leading to the cowboy and coming off of the cowboy. Okay, I hope everybody can pick that up, the power of the simplicity. It almost defies logic for when we're beginning, when we're starting painting, or even until we've turned that corner. It's like, but you only had one value on that tree. There wasn't even light or dark there. But again, we're sacrificing everything for whatever our visual power is. Okay, so we don't want the river bank, unless that's our focus, to be more powerful than, say, our horse and our cowboy, right? And I don't think we would want the grass even to be more powerful than the cowboy, right? If we look at that, what would you say that subject matter is, right? So the first thing is to clarify your idea. And to me, it's about the cowboy in the landscape. Okay, so that each tree then loses its right to come forward and be strong, and it stepped into a supporting role of supporting the visuals of the cowboy in the landscape. Okay, do you guys see that? So really, so much of this is about just being super clear on what you want to do and realizing you can't do it all. We're not going to Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm and then going skiing and going surfing and then let's go up to San Francisco and then we'll go over to Las Vegas. That's too much for 2 days, right? Remember, fine art is about good spacing. And if we applied that to our life, what would good spacing in our life be? Enough time between bills, shorter time between paychecks, enough time to take your sleep, to actually eat and digest your food, right? So if you think of spacing in that sense and like how much you cram into what size of space, it applies to life as well. Okay, so this brings us to the final work I looked at this week, but I was a little more thorough on this one. And I like this. Admittedly, I pushed this almost to a different style, but I did it to make a point. This starts with a lot of vibrant and, quite frankly, a lot of very pretty colors. But if you guys will remember when we were talking about the crew, we established that the pretty colors don't necessarily make a visually powerful painting. Right? We could have a crew of some pretty ugly dudes and have a much more visually powerful, unified painting. So see what you guys think about this one. And at the end, I'll talk about it, because even though I pushed it too far, it's not about how far you go, but it's about going more in the direction, how far in that direction you want to go. This painting has some beautiful colors in it, and it feels really good. But let's have a look and investigate where the visual power is at this point. Well, there's visual power in the sky. Looks like a sunset. It's going to be happening here. There's visual power in that blue water. And even this sand has got quite a bit of visual power at the current setup. If this is the middle of the canvas, let's get a little more distance in the horizon. And so I'm going to raise that up a bit. And then that color in the sunset sky will be right there. So the current setup is we've got some orange, some warms. We've got greens. And we've got some cools in there. We'll call it purple. So we'll call this an orange, green, purple setup more or less. And taking some samples of the current crew that's being used, this is what I got. Okay, can you see that everything kind of feels the same? The colors feel the same. So let's get some separation. We're going to take our warm colors, this is a sunset, and we're going to make them warmer. Something like that. Then we're going to take our purples and our greens and make them a warmer gray. Right? We're really going to take a lot of the chroma out of those and keep it on the warm side of the wheel. So now this is our crew. So this was the crew that I pulled from the current painting, the current status. And this is the crew that I'm going to work with on top of the painting. What do you guys think? Did I push it too far? I really like the moody stuff, but I know not everybody does. But part of the problem was we're painting a sunset, but so much of it felt like midday, right? As you get better and better a painter, really pulling it all together so that it really feels unified and like a place in the same light with the same atmosphere. Those are some of the more subtle and difficult problems that we have. And again, by starting with a very, very simple crew, it allows you to control those more important, the harmony aspects of the painting. Okay, so I'd love to hear what you guys thought, if you liked it better before or after. We're going to, again, since this was so short, we'll go through that one more time before I start working on the actual reference for about 10 minutes. And then as an artist, it's up to you to decide. Hopefully you can see, or you're beginning to acquire the eye that you can see. At first, it's not quite unified or harmonized. It's got a lot of beautiful color, but the painting as a whole isn't working. a lot of individual parts are working, right? It's like having a lot of happy, upbeat, vibrant people at the dinner party, but they're all talking about different things. And if somebody couldn't understand, they could go, oh, wow, they're having a great time. But they're just passing each other. There's no connections being made. Okay, so on this time through, watch for that and see what you got. And then we'll spend a few minutes looking at a live reference. This painting has some beautiful colors in it, and it feels really good. But let's have a look and investigate where the visual power is at this point. Well, there's visual power in the sky. Looks like a sunset. It's going to be happening here. There's visual power in that blue water. And even this sand has got quite a bit of visual power at the current setup. If this is the middle of the canvas, let's get a little more distance in the horizon. And so I'm going to raise that up a bit. And then that color in the sunset sky will be right there. So the current setup is we've got some orange, some warms. We've got greens. And we've got some cools in there. We'll call it purple. So we'll call this an orange, green, purple setup more or less. And taking some samples of the current crew that's being used, this is what I got. Okay, can you see that everything kind of feels the same? The colors feel the same. So let's get some separation. We're going to take our warm colors. This is a sunset. We're going to make them warmer. Something like that. Then we're going to take our purples and our greens and make them a warmer gray. Right? We're really going to take a lot of the chroma out of those and keep it on the warm side of the wheel. So now this is our crew. So this was the crew that I pulled from the current painting, the current status. And this is the crew that I'm going to work with on top of the painting. All right, guys. So for these last few minutes, let's go a little old school here, how we used to do it. And let's apply this course to this reference photo. This is not too far from my house, Central Coast of California. And it's really nice, but there's a few things wrong here. First of all, let's just see what the setup is. Let's see what where the setup is. So first thing we have is this dark in the foreground. So we'll call that 1. Then we'll come to this grass, which will be 2. Then we've got these trees, we can call 3. And we'll just group that mountain in with the 3rd. We've got this field that goes from here to here, which could be split into a lot, but we'll call that 4. And this mountain range, again, 2, going from here to here would be 5 to very far away, right? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 big steps back into space. Now, did nature just give it to you as it comes? Let's see. Here, this is that big, that's that big, that's that big, and that's that. That's not quite working, is it? No. So we must compose, recompose, reconstruct. First thing I want to see is what is going to be my visual power here. I think if we take this greener grass with those cows, That makes for a strong visual power. And we could even combine that into the negative shapes in this tree to where that visual power could all be like that. Okay, so that's one idea. So where would be a good place? Where would be a good place to put that? You know, because right now, again, it's not too far from the center. It's a little lower than the center. Again, what if we stuck it up there? And we don't always have to do that, but if we do, it gives us more room to start walking these things back. And then the other thing we're going to do is our foreground here. I'm going to just move it over to this side. And then that way, all of that right there can be moved to our finish. If you're looking at thirds, there's the finish. How's that for a mess, huh? Did you guys follow that? So if we're coming up, then we've got 1. And what are we going to do with our first step? Well, we're going to come over halfway, aren't we? So now this grass is going to be here. Now, if you try to think, well, but it's, no, just simply measure it out and make it happen. Then if we repeat again more than half, then this is going to be our trees. And then our big tree holding the thing would be about right there. Then we have mountains. Wait, do we have mountains? No, those are our trees. Then we have the field, and then we have the mountains behind it. Now we have big, smaller, smaller, and smaller. And that's how we create space in a landscape. Does that make sense? Okay. How are we doing? Man, this stuff takes time. I worked days and days and days on all that stuff you just saw, and when I finished it, literally about 4:45 today, I had about 6 minutes of video. So I was like, ouch, 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 ouch. Right, and then the big things over there, and then what you want to decide is how big do you want? Do you want that touching your other tree? Do you want this just a hint of this in here to help send us over? And by the way, these aren't, although I ask them lightly, these are decisions that require you to get to work. Try some variations, look with your own eyes and see, because it's only through doing the work that you actually gain the power, right? But if you pay attention and you do the work, you will gain the power. There's no doubt about it. All right, so we talked about spacing. Now, what about our crew? What about our crew? What's that going to be? Well, it's basically green, right? And we have a yellower green, and then a little darker, warmer green, and then we have gray. I would also put like a gray-red in there for like rocks. Some of these tree limbs, you can see the rocks back there. And why am I going to do red? Well, that's going to make the green seem more green, especially if I keep that red very, very neutral. So we have our colors. We talked about darker, richer. What's our middle going to be? Well, our middle will be one of these grays that all the colors disappear into, the gray of the sky. And so we'll make that each of those greens weaker by getting closer to that gray. All right, the last thing I'm going to show or talk about here is the spacing actually happens. Like we're not making this up, but look at the difference between the size of this tree. There's the tree again, and then as we get back there, look, there's the tree, and now we're getting it to where it's just almost a line back here. So it does work, but sometimes you have to more or less force it into your painting. Okay? Painting is not, let me look at something and copy it. It's an art. It's a format. And there's certain rules to make things happen, to have them be powerful. Okay? And it turns out that if you'll stop trying to look at everything and copy everything and go, hey, what makes a visually strong painting? Well, you know how to create space. You're going to make a strong forward advancing color supported by a weaker receding color. And then in the patterns I've shown you in this course, you can do a tremendous amount with those things. Make things emerge. Emerge out of nothing and merge back into nothing. And if you're able to do that, then there'll be great mystery. All right, my friends, I hope all of you will take what you've learned, what we've discussed from this course, and start working with it, start applying it. Because again, it doesn't do any good to hear it if you don't put it to work. You actually got to do the exercises, and generally you got to do the sit-ups and the push-ups more than one day, right? It's a regular routine where you're exercising your judgment. Your judgment of what? Well, your judgment of good spacing. So before we leave, I want to share a couple of things with you real quick. This good spacing can be practiced anywhere. And I often like to dip my fingers into different places where they talk about good spacing. And one of my latest things is there's such a thing called aquascaping. And they take these tanks and they put rocks and wood and they plant plants in them, and they have fish swimming around. And they have people that are extremely well versed in these compositions. This is a bunch of different rocks glued together to make this composition. And although there's not time to go in depth into it, it's very, very beautiful and elegant, yet it's based on something extremely simple. So simple that a preschooler could do it. And that is the triangle. A simple triangle, stretched and repeated and turned upside down. Okay, so I want you to encourage you to keep your eyes open for good spacing in life, in nature, in all of the arts, right? And all it's going to do is make your life much, much richer. Thank you for everything. Again, for everybody who's sent in donations and books and letters and cards, we really appreciate it. It's helped us up. Lost a lot of, well, basically wore my computer out. So a new computer will be coming, and we'll be back up soon. Over the last year, I've worked hard on the content. We've just brought somebody on that we're working with to help with the presentation. So hopefully the next time you see anything from me, the presentations will be a little more spot on. All right, from me and Cindy, we appreciate you guys staying with us all this time, and stay in touch, and we'll be back soon. Thank you, everybody. Please like and subscribe. And again, if you feel so inclined, we'd be happy to have those donations help us carry everything forward. Bye, everybody.